Hey there. Ever find yourself totally lost trying to understand a contract? Or maybe you bought something that just fell apart right away and you're like, what are my rights? Well,
Yeah.
today we're going deep into the world of consumer rights advisors. Those folks who help people like us navigate those tricky consumer law situations.
It's a really interesting field. We've been taking a close look at RoleCatcher.com, their career guide, some job postings, and even their product overview. And one thing that really struck me is this is about way more than just knowing the law.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about dusty old law books.
Not at all, no. It's really about people. A consumer rights advisor is kind of like a guide, an advocate, a problem solver, all in one. They're there to give consumers a voice when they're dealing with companies to really make sure things are fair.
So almost like a superhero for consumers, but with legal briefs instead of capes. The guide actually talks about what these advisors do every day. And it's not always pretty. Think about those calls you get when a product breaks or a service lets you down. That's where a consumer rights advisor comes in, dealing with those situations head on.
Yeah, and to do that well, you need this balance of empathy and authority, right? Empathy to connect with people who might feel cheated or taken advantage of, but also the authority to really advocate for them, to get results.
Just like de-escalating these potentially really tense situations, but you've got to stay focused on getting a fair outcome. What skills do you need to handle that kind of environment, do you think?
Well, the guide says that active listening, believe it or not, is the most important skill.
Really, more than actual legal knowledge.
Oh, knowing the law is crucial, for sure. But think about it. Before you can tell someone their rights or how to proceed, you have to really understand what's going on, what their concerns are. Active listening gets to those unspoken emotions, makes people feel heard, and that's how you build trust.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're fuming about, I don't know, a phone that died after a week, you don't want a law lecture. You want someone to actually listen.
Exactly. And once you've got that connection, that's when your legal knowledge and critical thinking skills really come into play. Every case is different, so you have to analyze the situation, see what the main issues are, and then figure out the best way to approach it.
It's like detective work, putting together the clues, knowing consumer rights, and then finding the solution. That actually sounds kind of fun.
It can be. It's not all about those individual cases, though. The guide also talks about the importance of looking at the bigger picture.
What does that look like in reality?
So, a consumer rights advisor might be looking for trends in the complaints they're seeing, right? Which could mean there's a problem with a company or even a whole industry.
So it's not just reacting to problems, but looking for patterns that could mean there are systemic issues that need to be addressed. That's a huge impact.
Exactly. They might end up working with, say, government agencies to improve regulations, or maybe collaborating with nonprofits to advocate for policy changes, or even working within a company to promote ethical practices.
Wow, so there are a lot of different directions you could go in with this career. You could be working for a watchdog group or an advocacy organization or even a huge corporation.
And that variety is reflected in the job market, too. The guide mentions that the employment outlook for this field is positive, which makes sense, right? I mean, the world of being a consumer is just getting more and more complex.
Yeah, totally. Online shopping, subscription services, data privacy, it can feel like a minefield out there. People need more guidance than ever to understand what their rights are and what they can do.
Absolutely. And as technology keeps advancing and there are even more choices for consumers, there will be even more demand for skilled consumer rights advisors to help navigate that complex world.
And speaking of navigating complex things, the RoleCatcher platform itself seems designed to help people navigate the job market. It's not just a job board, right?
Not at all. It's more like a whole toolkit for your career. They've got a CV builder, resources to help you prepare for interviews, and even a feature that analyzes job descriptions to tell you how to tweak your application for what the employer is looking for.
Oh, that's cool. It's like having your own personal career coach right there on your phone.
Hmm.
I know a lot of companies use AI now to scan applications, so having a tool that helps optimize your CV for that could be a game changer.
Definitely. It's a great example of how technology can help level the playing field in the job market, giving people an advantage in a tough environment.
It sounds like RoleCatcher has really put a lot of thought into what both job seekers and employers need in today's digital world.
They really have. But let's not forget the human element here, right? Technology can make the job search better, but at the end of the day, it's your passion, your skills, your dedication to consumer rights that will really make you stand out.
It's not about trying to trick the system with algorithms and keywords. It's about showing that you genuinely care about the field and that you can connect with people on a human level.
Exactly. And speaking of connecting with people, the guide also gets into how important networking is in this field. It's really crucial.
Right. We talked about that a little earlier.
hmm
They really stress how vital it is to build relationships in this field.
It's true if you think about it. Going to events, being part of online groups, connecting with people on LinkedIn, all of that helps you find out about jobs, get a feel for different career paths, and maybe even find mentors.
It's that saying, right? It's not just what you know, it's who you know. But here, it's also about who knows you and your passion for this.
Exactly. And that's actually a good point to transition because that's where those example profiles we mentioned earlier are really helpful.
You mean the profiles of entry-level, junior, and senior consumer rights advisors?
Yeah.
Yeah, they showed what skills and experience you need, and even the right mindset.
They give you a peek into what it's really like to do the job, the tough parts, the good parts. It's all about helping people navigate the ins and outs of the market.
It's like having these virtual mentors sharing their wisdom, so you can find your own way in the field.
And while these profiles are helpful, the guide also knows that one of the scariest parts of job hunting is the interview.
Ugh, don't even remind me. Do they have tips for how to get through that?
They have a whole section about prepping for interviews. It's super detailed. They list common questions they ask.
Tell me they don't have those behavioral questions like, tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult customer. I always blank on those.
They do, but they give you advice on how to answer those tough questions, even the hard ones, so you can highlight your skills and experience. And most importantly, your passion.
It's about more than just memorizing answers. It's about showing how your experience fits the role and makes you the best person for it.
Exactly. They even link to more in-depth interview resources, which is so helpful. They are really making sure aspiring consumer rights advisors have everything they need.
Wow, sounds like they've thought of everything. But besides those practical tips, what do you think is the most valuable takeaway from all this?
For me, it's how much they highlight the human side of this work. You need to know the law and be a good analytical thinker, yes, but it's about connecting with people, understanding their frustrations, and being a strong advocate for them. That's what will make you successful.
So we've talked about active listening, thinking critically. But what about the actual knowledge you need to be a consumer rights advisor? It's got to be more than just like knowing my rights as a shopper.
Oh, for sure. The RoleCatcher guide really stresses understanding those consumer protection laws, the regulations, and it can be different depending on what you focus on.
So someone giving advice on financial stuff might need to know about credit reporting laws or debt collection. But someone who's an expert in product safety, that's a whole other thing.
Exactly. And you can't just memorize laws. It's knowing how to use them in real life, which goes back to that critical thinking we talked about.
It's almost like being a lawyer, but instead of court, you're using that legal knowledge to help consumers understand their rights, how to actually use them.
That's a great way to put it. And the guide even gives you some real-world examples of what a consumer rights advisor might deal with.
Like, what? Give me an example.
Okay, so they might help someone write a complaint letter about a product that broke, or figure out warranty stuff, or even help them file a claim in small claims court.
Wow, so it's really hands-on.
hmm
You need legal knowledge, but also you have to be a good communicator, a problem solver. It's not just theory, it's about using what you know to help people with real problems.
Absolutely. And those problems, they change all the time as technology changes, as new products and services pop up. Think about data privacy, online scams, even like what rights drone operators have. The law is still catching up in those areas.
It's also you got to be a lifelong learner in this job. Can't just learn the basics and stop there.
Exactly. The guide even recommends ways to stay updated, like subscribing to consumer reports, going to conferences. There's the National Consumer Law Center. They have great ones.
Makes sense. Just like doctors on conferences to learn about the latest treatments, right? Consumer law is just as fast-paced.
Exactly. And just like in medicine, you see more and more specialization within consumer rights, too.
Oh, so you might have advisors who only focus on one industry, like telecommunications. Or they might become the expert in a specific area of the law, like online privacy or defective products.
Precisely. And like any specialized field, that focus can make you super valuable in the job market.
I know if I had an issue with a financial product, I'd much rather talk to an advisor who specialized in that, not someone who's more general.
Absolutely. And the guide actually lays out some potential career paths in the field. You could start as an assistant, helping senior advisors with investigations, then maybe manage your own cases, do training, or even advocate for policy changes at a government level.
That's really cool. It's not just a job, it's a whole career with a chance to really grow and make a difference. But let's back up a sec. What if you're just starting out? Any advice for breaking into the field?
They really emphasize getting experience, even if it's internships or volunteering, just to see what it's really like.
So volunteering at a consumer protection agency or a legal clinic, that could be amazing. You'd get skills, learn from the pros, and make those all-important connections.
Exactly. And speaking of connections, that's where networking is so, so important.
Right, we touched on this before, but they really hammer home how important relationships are in this field.
Think about it. Going to industry events, joining forums online, connecting with people on LinkedIn, that's how you find out about jobs, get insights into different career paths, and maybe even find mentors who can help you out.
It's like they say, it's not always what you know, it's who you know, right? But in this case, it's also about them knowing you
Yeah.
and that you're passionate about consumer rights.
Exactly. And that actually ties in perfectly with those example profiles we mentioned.
The ones of the entry-level junior and senior consumer rights advisors. Oh, you're right. They really showed what skills you need, the experience, even the right attitude.
They give you a real look at what it's like day to day, the challenges, the rewards, all about helping people deal with the complexities of, just being a consumer in this day and age.
Like having virtual mentors,
Yeah.
sharing their wisdom so you can find your own way.
And while those profiles are great, the guide knows that one of the most intimidating things for job seekers is the interview.
Oh, tell me about it. Those things can be so nerve-wracking. What do they say about that? Any tips for surviving those pressure cooker interviews?
They actually have a whole section on prepping for interviews. It is surprisingly detailed. They list common interview questions you might get asked.
Please tell me they don't include those dreaded behavioral questions like, tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult customer. I freeze up every time I hear that one.
They do, but don't worry, they give you tips on how to answer those tough questions, even the really hard ones, so you can highlight your skills and experience. And most importantly, show your passion for consumer rights.
So it's not just memorizing answers. It's about framing your experience in a way that shows your strengths and why you're a good fit for the role.
Exactly. And they even link to other more in-depth interview guides and resources. It's incredibly helpful. They're really going above and beyond to make sure aspiring consumer rights advisors have what they need to succeed.
Sounds like they've really thought of everything. But beyond those practical tips, what would you say is the most important thing to take away from all this?
To me, it's that they highlight the human side of this work. Yes, you need to know the law, be a good analytical thinker, for sure. But it's your ability to connect with people, to understand their frustrations, and be a strong advocate for them. That's what will make you successful.
It really is about combining that knowledge with the human touch. You
Yeah.
have to know the law inside and out, but also have that empathy, those communication skills to connect with people who are feeling lost and frustrated.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us back to something RoleCatcher talked about, how technology is changing the landscape for consumer rights advisors.
Right. They were talking about AI, how it's impacting both how people apply for jobs and how employers look for candidates.
It's pretty wild when you think about it. You have people using these AI tools, like RoleCatcher's CV Optimizer, to make their applications stand out. But then employers are using AI too, right? Analyzing those applications, picking out key skills, even trying to predict who would fit in best with their company culture.
Like this high-tech dance, job seekers and employers each trying to outsmart the other with technology.
In a way, I guess. But it doesn't have to be a battle. If AI is used ethically, responsibly, it could actually make things more fair. Less human bias, connecting people with opportunities they might have never even known about.
It's about using these tools in a way that's good for both sides, the job seekers and the employers. But it does make you wonder, if AI is already changing how we apply for jobs, how else could it change things for consumers in the future?
Now there's a question. Imagine if you had these AI chatbots that could answer any consumer question anytime, day or night. No more struggling to understand legal stuff. You'd always know your rights.
Or what if there was an AI that could read a contract before you sign it? It could point out any bad terms, anything hidden that wasn't in your favor.
Exactly. And imagine if AI could spot those patterns of companies doing shady stuff. It could catch scams and bad practices before they even get big.
That's amazing. It'd be like having this army of digital watchdogs protecting people.
Right. But just like with any powerful tool, it all comes down to how we use it. Transparency, accountability, always putting the consumer first.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Being a consumer rights advisor is about having that focus on the consumer. Always.
Couldn't agree more. It's fighting for fairness, transparency, ethical practices, whether it's individual cases pushing for policy changes, or even figuring out this whole AI thing and how it impacts consumers.
It's about being that voice for the consumer, a champion for their rights, and helping them navigate this crazy world of products, services, and all this new tech that just keeps coming.
And as technology keeps advancing faster and faster, consumer rights advisors are going to be even more important, making sure the marketplace is fair for everyone.
So if you're someone who loves a challenge, who wants to make a real difference in people's lives, and who's excited by this whole intersection of consumer rights and technology, this could be the career for you.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one designing those AI tools we were just talking about, shaping the way we all navigate the consumer world in the future.
Now that's an exciting thought. And there we have it, folks. Another deep dive done and dusted. Today, we explored the world of the consumer rights advisor. We talked about the skills you need, the challenges, the opportunities, and, of course, how technology is changing everything.
We hope this got you thinking, sparked your curiosity, and hey, maybe even inspired you to consider a career that's both challenging and so rewarding.
So until next time, keep those questions coming, never stop learning, and don't be afraid to dive deep into the stuff you're passionate about.